Right, I think that's calmed down enough now. Members' question time. Any questions, please, members? Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Chair. Could you give us an update on the peer review and where we are with that, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. This was actually brought up at the last meeting by Councillor Brodie about where we were with this, and Councillor Fuller was hoping to be here to give the answer to this. As he cannot be, he had another meeting.
Sorry, just to correct you there, I didn't ask about the peer review. I asked about the planning protocols review, which is an entirely
Oh, I see. Yes,
thing.
yes, they are related.
I've never asked about the peer review yet.
Right. Yes, the planning protocols working group is doing part of the peer review process. I appreciate they're not exactly the same things. They were set up independently, but I have a report here from Councillor Fuller. I think you might have had printed copies, but I'm going to read it out for the sake of the meeting. So, following the report from the LGA peer review, the Planning Services Improvement Steering Group met for the first time in early October. The steering group consists of the portfolio holder for planning and enforcement, the chairman of the planning committee, a representative for the Isle of Wight Association of Local Councils, a representative of the affordable housing sector, a representative of the development sector, and the strategic manager for planning. The terms of reference were agreed and the actions identified in the peer review report were discussed. Each member of the steering group identified their 5 priority actions or areas for action from that document, and these are now being combined to produce one shared set of 5 priority actions or areas for action and some greater detail over what that might all look like. These will then be agreed at the next meeting, and the group can then expand on them to establish a delivery plan and think about other outputs. The group is planning to meet on a 6-weekly basis, and the next meeting of the group is diarised for November 21st. A number of actions identified by the peer review have already been undertaken and completed in advance of the steering group being established. Specifically, these are: firstly, to establish governance of action plan and reporting requirements. Completing this action has put in place the governance arrangements for the steering group to function and lead the improvement journey. Secondly, to introduce monthly planning committee meetings and senior planning staff workshops. The chair has introduced monthly Wednesday workshops with a formal agenda for points of discussion and shared learning. These include quarterly sessions reviewing appeal decisions and learning from them. Thirdly, to improve the notification process to councillors and town and parish councils of new planning applications. This could be done by ward to make it easier to follow. The positive change in completing this action is that the press list is now listed in parish order rather than chronological planning application number. This was completed by IT during the scheduled downtime for the website. And finally, to review Cornwall County Council's enforcement guidance and policy as an example of best practice. Completing this outcome feeds into the wider exercise of rebooting our enforcement service and preparing a new planning enforcement strategy, which links into a number of other actions. So that's hopefully to put you in the picture of where we are. There is a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and that doesn't mention the work of the planning protocols working group, really in particular. So there are other groups kind of working on these different things. I mean, I'm looking very querying at me.
I'm extremely puzzled, I have to say, because you reading that report out is the first time I've heard about it. Is this by a different name? Is this the meetings that you hold on a Wednesday afternoon?
Yes, the ones I do are called the planning workshops and the training workshops. There are various different meetings. There are 2 weekly meetings of some of the key members to just look at the progress of the whole thing. There's a 6 weekly meetings of the steering group. Thank you, and your meetings, which are now fortnightly, I understand, which are dealing with specific recommendations to go to audit for alterations of the code of practice. Are we on the same page here?
Well, to some extent, the only committees that I was aware of, or working groups, or whatever name one gives to them, was the planning protocol working group, which I chair, and the workshop that you chair. I wasn't aware of a steering group, and I'm slightly concerned that we may all be sort of pulling in different directions, particularly if I'm not even aware of the group that's supposed to be steering my group. It's getting very confusing, and I thought that one of the reasons that we clarified it last time, and we're going to report on it this time, was to try and streamline the process so we don't have too many people working in different ways in different areas. It just seemed to be getting, if I may say so, extremely complicated for what is a relatively straightforward issue.
This is exactly what I wanted to do, to bring this into the open, because we do need to get this broad picture, because it's been a concern of ours as well, but is who is doing what, where and how. Mr. Bolton would like to speak, so. Yes, sorry, yes, Councillor Brodie.
Yeah, yes.
Mr. Bolton, do you want to speak first?
Yeah,
Councillor
yeah, can I just question, Chair? You know, I mean, I attended the planning protocols working group, which is primarily looking at the code of practice of this committee last week. But it struck me, and Councillor Spink will refuse if it's not true, that there was concern of the people who were there, that there were so many things going on. I think Peter's just articulated that, really, that you can't, there's no transparency about what's happening. You know, you've just read out something that should be shared with every member of this committee regarding a peer review of the planning service. There are other groups going on. I mean, there's transformation groups and stuff like that. I haven't a clue what that's all about, but that seems to be related to planning as well. I just think, and I think Councillor Andre just, muttered to me, we have a very limited planning resource, very limited, not in terms of ability, but in terms of numbers. There's only so much they can do, and Mr. Bolter and his staff can only support us so far. And I think we need to have recognition of that. Thank you, Chair.
very good points, and we are mindful of those things. Mr. Bolton, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on some of the points that you've expressed there, Councillor Spink and as well Councillor Brodie. Obviously, there is a lot that came out of the peer review. I think off the top of my head, we extracted 57 different actions, outcomes, or objectives that were recommended for us to seek to achieve. And they obviously looked at the entire service, so not solely the workings of the planning committee. So the part of the overall work of the peer review, the steering group, under Councillor Fuller as the portfolio holder, is to look at it across the piece and try and do some of that exercise and address some of those concerns that you've rightly expressed about making sure that we're not duplicating work, effort, and effectively treading on other toes, and very much cognizant of what everyone else is doing. So that is what Paul is leading on and what we're trying to pull together. As referenced in the update that Chair gave, it is still at that very embryonic stage, and I'm certainly working hard to try and provide a lot of that clarity, and which I intend to be able to bring to the next steering group, as we indicated would meet later on in November, to then enable a much wider dissemination of that information. And I think, obviously I can't speak on behalf of Councillor Fuller as portfolio holder, but I would anticipate that that would be a wider sharing of information than simply even just the planning committee. I think that would be made available. I would anticipate that would be made available to all members of the Isle of Wight Council.
Would anyone else like to comment on this? Is it, are people very confused and want any more clarification? Are there any other questions from members? In that case, well, I think we can call the meeting closed. So thank you all very much indeed for your concentration this evening. Thank you.